In today's video, we're taking a look at some NHL trade rumors involving the Montreal Canadiens, Detroit Red Wings, New Jersey Devils, and could Timo Meier be a big target of the New York Rangers? Plus, we have news from the NHL waiver wire, some more injury and roster updates, and a situation involving Ivan Provorov and the Philadelphia Flyers. We'll discuss all that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade rumors to look at today. First up, we do have more news from the NHL waiver wire today. Yesterday, the Ottawa Senators had forward Jake Lucchini on waivers. Of course, he had appeared in 10 games, scored 1 goal. He did, in fact, clear and has been reassigned to the Belleville Senators in the American Hockey League. We do have 2 more players on waivers today, which include Michael McCarron of the Preds and Vinny Hinostroza from the Buffalo Sabres. Hinostroza is actually a player I talked about yesterday in the video, saying that the Sabres were trying to find a new home for him to give him more of an opportunity, more playing time, free up a roster spot for themselves at the same time. Obviously, I mentioned that they were exploring trade options, but they felt like they weren't going to find one that waivers was an option or a possibility, and didn't think it would happen quite so quickly. But here we are today. So we'll see tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern time if Hinostroza or McCarron is picked up. Several news and notes from around the league regarding injuries and then thus recalls. Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche will not be playing in the game against the Calgary Flames, of course, in his hometown this evening. He got banged up a bit in the last game for the Avalanche and is going to be sitting this one out. Wouldn't be shocking by the sounds of things if he misses a game or 2 more. The Maple Leafs have sent down Pontus Holmberg to the American Hockey League as well. My understanding is that the main reason for that is to kind of give the Marlies some reinforcements as they're coming up on a extended road trip. So we'll see. Obviously, he's been doing well in the NHL, and there was a lot of questions around that move today. The New York Islanders have recalled William Dufour and Dennis Cholowski. William Dufour, one of their top prospects, who, of course, had a solid final year of junior last year for the St. John Sea Dogs. Helped them win the Memorial Cup and then get to play for Team Canada in the summer edition of the World Junior Championships. Really took some big steps forward in his career last year. Has 25 points in his first 37 games this year in the American Hockey League for Bridgeport, so he's off to a really good start. So the jump to pro hockey has been good to him. He is expected to make the lineup tonight and likely play on the line with Matthew Barzal and Josh Bailey. So hopefully Dufour can make the most of his opportunity. They've also recalled Dennis Cholowski for some reinforcements on the blue line. The team I want to talk about quickly when it comes to roster moves is Ottawa. Defenseman Artem Zub, I believe for the 2nd or 3rd time this year, is back on injured reserve. So he's officially on IR. We talked about the injury here in the past days, but he wasn't officially on IR just yet. Josh Norris makes his long triumphant return here to the lineup for the Sens. Of course, the top center for the team has missed 35 games with a shoulder injury. He will be back tonight when they do battle against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So that's certainly notable for them. We'll have a whole different look in the top 6. And Matthew Joseph, we have an interesting scenario going on with him. He was activated from injured reserve. He's been out for a fairly lengthy absence as well. Tonight, the Sens, of course, battle Pittsburgh, as I just mentioned. It was going to be the first time ever that Matthew and his brother, Pierre-Olivier Joseph, who plays for Pittsburgh, were going to be set to do battle against each other. And now Joseph is going to be a healthy scratch, even though he has been activated from IR. Coach DJ Smith in his pregame availability earlier today did make mention of the lineup, didn't mention Joseph. So when the reporters asked about him, they were told that he was indeed going to be a healthy scratch. Asked if he wanted to elaborate on the reasons why, and he said no. So it sounds like something that they want to keep internal. I know lots of reporters in Ottawa have been trying to do some digging on this afternoon to try to find what they can, and there's really no concrete 100% guaranteed truth here, but it sounds like he's violated some sort of team rule or policy. I don't know if he missed a meeting, overslept, missed practice. I don't know what happened when it comes to Joseph, but certainly the coach has his reasons. I mean, Matthew Joseph, like I said, was supposed to do battle against his brother tonight. They have, between the two of them, I think about 50 family and friends in attendance at the Canadian Tire Center in Ottawa. So this is certainly not something they would do to embarrass him. They'd have to have a really good reason to not put him in the lineup. And going to be curious to see if we find out why, because that's kind of out of character for him. And it's certainly unusual for the team. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see where things goes. Oh yeah, when the Montreal Canadiens injury updates as well that we talked about yesterday, we did get a little bit more details. The long-term injuries for Evans and Slafkovsky are both going to be out for a few months. They're both left knee injuries, so certainly that could mean the end of the season, possibly for each of them, given where we are at in the season. Now, as I mentioned, we also had an unusual situation last night in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Flyers were hosting Pride Night, of course, to do that as a fundraiser, and of course to make sure that everybody in the LGBTQ plus community feels welcome. Spread that message, and of course, as a fundraiser of sorts as well for the community. So the Flyers had special warm-up jerseys, which were Pride themed, and I'd seen that Flyers media that were in attendance were making note that Ivan Provorov was not on the ice for warm-up. So a lot of reporters, the early on speculation was he must not be playing tonight. There must be an injury or something going on that we don't know about. But then surprisingly, even though he wasn't out for warm-up, he comes out for the game, which kind of surprised a lot of people. You don't usually see players skipping warm-up. Very unusual in that sense. We did find out later, though, the reasons why, and Provorov did speak to the media after the game, essentially saying that he didn't want to take part in the Pride fundraiser and wear the Pride jersey. He didn't want to participate in that whatsoever, and he said it was due to his religious beliefs. So it's not something you've really seen. NHL teams have had a variety of themed nights, a variety of fundraisers. I know that a lot of teams are trying to push the hockey is for everyone and make sure that all kinds of different groups of minorities and different things are feeling inclusive and included and welcomed. And this is just unusual. We really haven't seen any NHL players, make a stance publicly to the point that it would gain public attention, at least, to kind of go against it. Provorov wasn't asked about his religion. He said he's Russian Orthodox. And I just found it unusual. I'd like to know what everybody thinks about it. For me, I just thought it was an unusual set of circumstances that he skips warm-up, refuses to take part in a team fundraiser, and they still dressed him for the game. Tortorella basically said because it was due to his religious beliefs that they weren't going to do anything further. And I kind of understand that to an extent, but like I said, it's not just about wearing a jersey. It's also about a fundraising event, right? And at the same time, I don't know that, some people say he's hiding behind his religious beliefs. It just seems to me like I find it maybe a bit of a contradiction. I just found it confusing. Anyways, there's been a big debate today about was he right, was he wrong, should the team have scratched him, not scratched him. Certainly has every right to express his religious beliefs. I don't have any issues with that. But at the same time, I also think that the teams and players, if they're going to do this as a team, it should be done as a team. So I'd love to know what everybody's thoughts are on the Provorov situation. Should the Flyers have kept him in the game and they do the right thing? Let me know down in the comments, and we'll see what everybody here thinks as a group. Now onto the trade section of the video. Frank Saravalli is reporting that he thinks that there's a possibility we could see a goalie trade between the New Jersey Devils and the Detroit Red Wings, citing the fact that recently demoted goalie Alex Nedeljkovic in Detroit, who cleared waivers, obviously doesn't seem to have a future in Detroit. And we know that Mackenzie Blackwood in New Jersey also, I wouldn't say he doesn't have a future there, but it's certainly not his crease. It's, Vitek Vanacek by far is kind of running with things there. And maybe we could see a scenario for Blackwood and Nedeljkovic both to get a fresh start and move on to a new team. So it'll be interesting to see if we do see this trade pulled off. With New Jersey trending towards being a playoff team and Detroit not, I'm not 100% convinced that we will see this deal go down. I wouldn't be shocked if Blackwood is moved. I would not be shocked at all if New Jersey found a way to try to upgrade the backup goaltending situation. I just don't know if Nedeljkovic is the right guy. So we'll have to see what happens, but it does make sense that even if these two teams don't trade together, that maybe these guys are both moved separately in a way to find, and a fresh start and to get on with a new organization. Now, there's also talk as well from Dan Kuczynski, Pittsburgh Hockey Now, about a potential trade between Pittsburgh and Minnesota. Of course, those, are very familiar with each other. Of course, the GM of the Wild, Bill Guerin, longtime employee and former player of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Obviously, one key name in Minnesota that we keep hearing about is Matt Dumba. Matt Dumba is likely done in Minnesota this year, whether he finishes the year there or not. Fair to say that he's not going to be re-signed and be playing somewhere different next season. So, of course, there's been a lot of rumblings that the Wild want to make other upgrades going into the playoffs. Makes sense where he's maybe not a part of the team's future and likely to not be re-signed, that he would be one of the players they would consider moving to upgrade other areas of the team. Of course, the Pittsburgh Penguins do have some forwards that they would likely be willing to move, including guys like Kasperi Kapanen or Teddy Bluger. So there is some thought that from the author here, Dan Kaczynski, that we might be able to see a trade between these two teams, and that could be some of the players involved, so the parameters around a potential deal. I mean, Dumba has been rumored to be getting interest from Ottawa amongst a few other teams. Certainly not the player he was earlier on in his contract when he was a little bit younger. At one point, he was more dynamic, putting up more offensive numbers. Now he seems to be kind of regressing and not quite the same defenseman he was even 3 or 4 years ago. So we'll have to see where this goes. But the Penguins obviously have some, have had some absences from Letang and Petrie on the right side. It would give them somebody who's used to playing top 4 minutes on the right side now, and then you really created that much more deeper and more depth on the blue line for when the others return from injury. So we'll see where things go. Could Timo Meier be a target of the New York Rangers? According to Frank Saravalli, the Rangers are a potential team that Meier could end up with. Certainly the big kicker in San Jose for Meier is a $10 million qualifying offer. So even though he's a restricted free agent, there is a decent possibility that whoever he goes to, assuming he is traded, might not re-sign him. They might use him as a rental player, even though he's not your typical traditional rental type of player that you see at the trade deadline move every season. But in the case of Timo Meier, he's a proven 30-35 goal scorer. He might even hit higher this year. It's certainly worth a fair bit of money. I would think if the Rangers are going to make that trade, though, that they would probably want to work out an extension ahead of time. But certainly makes a lot of sense. Now, there's some debate on what the return could be. Of course, Frank Saravalli talking about Meier and the Rangers didn't really get into what the parameters of a trade could look like, but it's no secret that the Sharks are going to want a good return here. I would think a first-round pick and maybe at least, depending on the quality of the player, at least one really good young player and maybe more. I would think probably looking at 3 assets for a player that's his age and goal-scoring ability. So Timo Meier is definitely going to get a lot of interest. Not a given 100% that San Jose trades him given his RFA status, but certainly does make a lot of sense that they will, and it does make a lot of sense that the Rangers might be in the mix there as well. And in terms of the Montreal Canadiens, there's been some speculation about goaltender Samuel Montembeault maybe being moved, given the fact that he's not the only one, but Jake Allen and Caden Primo also have term on their contract as well. They have 3 goalies under contract for multiple seasons, and it was some believed, that especially early on, that Montembeault might be the odd man out after the year. That makes sense that after the Canadiens recently re-signed Jake Allen to a 2-year extension, he would continue to be the starting goaltender for this team as they go through the rebuild, and then maybe by next year, Primo would be ready to come up and assume the role of the backup goaltender, leaving Montembeault out in the cold and possibly onto a new organization or looking for work elsewhere. But Ken Hughes has made it known that he doesn't have intention of trading Samuel Montembeault at this point in time. So even though there has been rumored to be some interest from around the NHL and a variety of teams, that he likely isn't going anywhere. Now, I guess once the season ends and they're getting ready for next year, I wouldn't completely rule out the possibility that a goalie gets moved, whether it be Montembeault or Allen or one of the two. I mean, it just doesn't make sense here for them to carry 3 young goaltenders, unless they really feel that Primo is just not NHL ready and they want to ride with Montembeault and Allen to NHL level for another year or more. So we'll see on that. And defenseman Joel Edmondson of Montreal is also generating a lot of interest. No guarantee that they trade him as well. There's been some rumors that Edmondson is not wanting to leave Montreal, and he's quite happy and content there. But at the same time, they don't really have the protection to have to talk to him about trade, so they can kind of do what they feel as an organization is best. But it's also been rumored that the organization does value him and wants to keep him as well. But if they feel they can get a big enough return, it might be pretty hard to pass it up. But I know for a lot of top defensemen, especially after they get a first-round pick for Ben Chiarot last year, I would imagine they're going to be thinking that they can get a similar value. And to me, I would not pay that price at all. I mean, look at the Florida Panthers and what they spent last year on deadline acquisitions, and they didn't go very far in the playoffs, and now look at them a year later. I think it's risky. I'm not really sure that they should be doing too many moves like that, but Edmonton is definitely getting a fair bit of interest. The Washington Capitals, of course, have a battered blue line with the top D-man, John Carlson, out for an extended period of time. He may not play again this regular season, so it makes sense that they would want to add some depth on that blue line, and Edmonton's one of probably a handful of guys that they're looking at. So we'll have to see where things go, but certainly a few other trades in Montreal we could see. Lots of other players in the rumor mill as well, of course, but we don't know what their future is going to hold because it's hard to say that there's a lot of trade value. But guys like Dadonov and Drouin, Hoffman, all likely to, the Habs would like to move them, but is it possible? Will they get enough interest that they can pull it off? That's going to be the question that remains to be seen. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.